First of all, we need an introduction to GameMaker Studio 2. This is the update 2.3.0.529. All right, so this is my first in a series of videos about GameMaker Studio 2. I'm excited about this new version of GameMaker, and I hope that I can help everybody figure out what's going on. So we covered a lot of this in class, and I just wanted to make this video so that you have something you can go back and look at. If you weren't in class, here's what we did. First, we started out in our Volusia Schools OneDrive. Now, I asked you to create a folder in your OneDrive. You can do that a number of ways. Up here at the top in the menu bar, there is a new folder. If your menu is closed, it's just like Word. Double-click on that. It'll bring your menu back up. So if you click on New Folder, it will create a new folder. Just hit backspace and type GameMaker. Now, I already have a GameMaker folder, so this is not going to be happy with me. So I'm just going to click No and show you where my GameMaker folder is. In GameMaker folder, I asked you to create an Assets folder. Again, if you don't know how to do that, click on New Folder. You can also right-click anywhere in this folder and go down to New and choose Folder, and it will give you a new folder. Hitting backspace, type in the name. I don't want this here, so I'm going to delete it. We have an Assets folder, and the Assets folder is empty. GameMaker folder only has the Assets folder. We're going to put our games at this level in the GameMaker folder. And from time to time, I'm going to give you assets that I will want you to put in this folder. Those assets will be images, sounds, maybe some backgrounds, who knows. But for now, we just have this folder available for when I give you stuff and you can download it and extract it into there. Okay, so that's all we really needed to do in your OneDrive. On my desktop, I have this icon for GameMaker Studio 2, which you will also find at school. Those of you who are working on your personal computers, you should create a shortcut on your desktop. It's the easiest way to find it. You can also come down here, type GameMaker. Once you have it installed, you can right-click on that and pin it to your start so that now, when you click your start menu, it'll be there. You can move this around, put it wherever you want it to be, wherever is most useful to you. That will put it on your start menu. If you drag that out and drop it on your desktop, you get an automatic shortcut to it. I already had one, so I'm going to delete that. When you open GameMaker, it may take it a little bit to open, especially the first time. You'll see the icon down here in your toolbar. Best thing to do is to right-click that and pin it to your taskbar. So you want to pin that to your taskbar. That way you can open it from here. You can open it from your desktop. You can open it from your start menu. Lots of options. Over here, you may or may not see recent projects. As you work, your recent projects will appear there, and you can always just open them easily by clicking that. But right now, we're going to create a new project. Always create your projects using GameMaker language. GameMaker language will help teach you how to understand programming. If you want to play with drag and drop, that's absolutely fine at home, but no drag and drop in class. I will not allow you to use drag and drop in class ever. You must use GameMaker language. So we're going to create this in GameMaker language. It'll pull up this window. Just make sure that you navigate to your school OneDrive. So there's my school OneDrive. And in my school OneDrive, I'm choosing to put this in my GameMaker folder, which I have a lot of junk in here. So kind of a mess. I'm going to put this in my GameMaker folder. And you can tell it's in the right place because it says OneDrive, Volusia County Schools, GameMaker. I can see my assets folder, but I'm not putting it in my assets folder. I'm putting it in my GameMaker folder. OneDrive, GameMaker folder, you know you're in the right place. You should keep things in your GameMaker folder regardless of whether you're working at school or at home, because that way they will be accessible in both places. So you can work on a project at school, go home, work on it some more, come back to school, and everything will be updated. Now, that said, if you have a whole lot of stuff in your Volusia County OneDrive, like I do, I have junk in my Volusia County OneDrive. I really need to clean that up, and you should clean yours up. Don't leave it really, really full. The problem is it's going to take a long time to sync, and if you've got a whole bunch of stuff that needs to sync, you're at its mercy because there's no way to force it to sync your GameMaker file first. So if you're having a hard time with syncing issues, best thing you can do, clean up that OneDrive. As you name your games, you will have to name them very specifically. And I do have reasons for this. If for no other reason, you just need to get in the habit of following instructions. Following instructions is important. Your game should always be named starting with your period. So I'm going to write P0 because I'm not in a period in particular. You're going to write whatever period you're in, P1, P3, P4, P5, P7. So you're going to write your period number and then an underscore and then your last name and then your first name. Last name, first name in camel case, all one word, all shoved together, absolutely no spaces ever in your file names. Then an underscore and a name for your project. If your project name is going to be multiple words, it again should be in camel case. I won't be terribly particular about what the project name says, as long as it is descriptive of what you're doing. You just want to be able to find the right game when you want to look for something. So I'm just going to call this project name. And it opens up this window. So we have our menu bar across the top. I will expect you to start picking up this language of programming. So this is our menu bar. Not a lot of that we're going to use. You can save your project here. Notice you can also save your project using Control S. If you want to rename your project, you'll choose Save As, same as anything else, and you can rename your project. If you wanted to rename your project, my suggestion is choose the old name from the drop-down and add a number to the end of it. So if you want to save multiple versions of your project, now they're all going to sort together and they'll be listed in version order. I don't really want to do this, so I'm just going to cancel. The edit menu, I mean, you can use the edit menu, but why would you use the edit menu when you could just use the shortcuts? Undo is Control Z, redo is Control Y. Search and replace will be very useful, and we may use that from time to time. I don't tend to remember that that's Control Shift F. I do use the edit menu to find search and replace. The build menu, you can run your game from here, but again, I don't ever use the build menu. You can use F5, and then there's an icon in the toolbar we will look at. The debugger, we probably won't get to, at least not before third quarter. The debugger is really, it is actually really useful, but it's built with the expectation that you understand programming, which early programmers don't. Remember, this is an industry level tool, so it is a bit beyond us at the moment. Clean is used when you need to clean up your project, and sometimes your game gets really big and you make a little change and it doesn't seem to be working. So I've made this change, but when I run my game, look, it still does the old thing, but I know I changed it. Look right here, I changed it. Okay, if that's the problem, clean your game. This will give you a clean build, and it will, when it's compiling, it will see all of your changes. Create executable. This is great. When you finish your game, you'll create an executable. An executable will allow someone else to run your game without having GameMaker. So that's a way to give your game to somebody to have them look at it and play it and see how cool you are. The Windows menu, now this is useful. If you accidentally close a window, you can many times find it from this menu. Now they're not actually all here, so there are some windows that you have to open a different way, but for example, my asset browser is here and my asset browser is there. If I accidentally close my asset browser, oh, wow, where do I get that back? I'll come up here to Windows, go to the asset browser. There it is, but now it's not docked. So I'll drag it over here to the side and dock it where it belongs. This is a tools menu, which is not going to be useful to us at all. We will never get into this. This is the tool bar. So when I talk about tools, I'm talking about the tools that are in the tool bar, not the tool menu. Marketplace, we won't be using either. Layouts, we might be using layouts, especially those of you at home might find layouts very useful. But for now, I'm not going to worry about that. And the help. Well, help sounds great. However, the help you need, you probably won't be able to find here. Again, this is an industry level tool. So this help menu is intended for people who understand programming and just need some help figuring out how to do this in GameMaker, even though they already know how to do it, maybe in another language, or they at least have an idea of how to do it. So opening the manual is interesting. I can click on that, open up the GameMaker manual, but it's not going to be the most helpful thing for us. So I'm just going to close that. Back in our game, this is our toolbar. And again, we won't use all of these, but we're going to use several of them. So today we're going to look at just a few. If you accidentally click on the home, a lot of times students will click on this and they think they have closed their game because this is the start menu and they have to reopen it. Well, you haven't really closed your game because your game is running right up here at the top. You can see your game is running. You can close the start page just by clicking on that X and you're back here to your workspace. Speaking of workspaces, you can add multiple workspaces. And sometimes you do want multiple workspaces, or sometimes you have a workspace that's just a real mess and you want to delete it. Delete a workspace by clicking on that little X right there. But you always have to have one workspace. So if this space is a mess, you have to create a new one and then close that one. And now we have a workspace. And our numbers change, but we don't really care what they're called. We're not going to do that. You can save your game here using this icon. Or you can use Control S. You need to get in the habit of saving and saving often. So every time you make a change to your game, you really should just Control S and save it, or click on the icon up here. The debugger, again, we're probably not going to be using, at least not for a while. You can run your game from this little triangle here, or you can see that you can run your game from F5. I typically use the triangle. You can use whichever you want to, but let's go ahead and run this game. So when I run my game, here it is. That's not very interesting. Nothing going on there, nothing to play, nothing to see. That's because it's just our default game. And when you open GameMaker, you get one level or room for free, and it doesn't have anything in it, but it does allow you to run the game. You can close the game from this X. There's also this one. You can close it from stop, but you do have to close your game before you can run another one. If you have a game running and you just come back here and you work, and then you want to run it again and you click run, it'll say stop the current running project before running again. Okay, yes, we do need to do that. And then it would run again. So close that. There's a shortcut for clean. We talked about that. This is game options. Most of that is beyond us, so please don't mess around with that right now. We can get help here, but again, I told you that won't be real helpful for you. There's the zoom in and zoom out. Those are obvious. This button here is curious. So notice that I have this panel open to here, and I have another panel at the bottom that has multiple tabs in it. And if I open this room, it gives me a panel on the left, but it makes the workspace really small. And if you can't see what you're working on here and you want to close these, please don't close them with the X. There are ways to hide them. This button will hide all three of the sides and bring them back. Or you can click on that bar on the far left or the far right to close those. Now if I click this, it's only going to close the bottom and it won't bring the sides back. That's because I hid them manually, but you can bring them back by just clicking on that sidebar. So you can hide anything by clicking on the sidebar or the very bottom bar, or you can hide everything by clicking that icon. So I'm going to go ahead and close my room so that that goes away. I am going to close this bottom bar here because we're not going to look at that for a while. It just gets confusing. There is an icon for laptop mode if you're working on a laptop. That is kind of convenient, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Over here we have our asset browser. The asset browser will show you all the assets in your game. There is a quick access that we don't have the use for right now, so I'm going to collapse that. And then there are all of these folders. These folders are organized and created by GameMaker itself. Please don't rename them. Don't attempt to reorganize them because you can't. If you take a folder and drag it, I want to have this at the top. I didn't really move it to the top. It moved it inside of that animation curves, which you do not want to happen. So I'll drag it back down here to the bottom and it'll put it where it belongs. Don't rearrange them, don't rename them, and don't delete them. Next up, creating sprites using the sprite editor.